Welcome to another episode of StoryTime, Lesoul's Adventure, Episode 4. Lesoul woke up brimming with excitement to a brilliantly bright day. She took her shower and readied herself, thanking the universe for this moment. After dressing and brushing her hair, Lesoul stood in front of the mirror, meeting her own gaze with a soft smile. The room was filled with gentle morning light, and outside the window, London shimmered with promise. It was as if the universe had arranged every particle of this morning's warmth and brightness to say, "Yes, follow the flow." She closed her eyes for a moment, placing a hand over her heart. "Thank you," she whispered inwardly, "not only for the day ahead, but for the countless steps that had led her here, every synchronicity, every leap of faith, every soul connection that brought her to this unfolding adventure." There was something special about this feeling, the sense that she was on the cusp of a new chapter, gracefully turning the page without needing all the answers in advance. As she slipped on her shoes and gathered her things, Lesoul felt a lightness in her chest. She imagined the moments to come, meeting Tom in the lobby, walking through the storied streets and hidden alleys, marveling at architecture that told century-old tales, and feeling the subtle hum of energy in a city that balanced tradition and innovation. She saw the quiet conversations, the laughter, and that warm sense of familiarity that had blossomed in just one evening. Before leaving, she paused one last time, breathing in the gratefulness and excitement. This day was a gift, and she intended to savor every second. Then, with a gentle nod to herself, she opened the door and stepped into the hall, ready to meet whatever wonders the universe had in store. Meanwhile, Tom had arisen extremely early, too excited to sleep longer. He anticipated taking Lesoul on a never-to-be-forgotten trip this day, a trip to Stonehenge. He knew he had met someone who would be precious to him, and in many ways a soul companion. He knew he was getting ahead of himself, but his heart told him the truth. Tom stood in his hotel window, watching the early morning sky shift from dusky blue to soft gold. He'd woken before dawn, unable to coax himself back to sleep. Instead, he dressed quietly, savoring the hush of the city before it fully awakened. He paced the room a bit, then made himself some tea, his thoughts drifting to Lesoul. He smiled to himself, remembering how the conversation had flowed so easily the night before, how their words, so different on the surface, had interlaced with effortless understanding. He had sensed it immediately. Her presence stirred something deep within him. It was as though he finally encountered someone who saw life's tapestries as he did, weaving the strands of the ordinary and the extraordinary together into something more meaningful. This morning, he had made a decision. Today would be more than just a simple tour of London's sights. He would surprise her with a trip to Stonehenge. As a sheep farmer and a metaphysical publisher, he knew the power of sacred landscapes. Ancient places carried energies of their own, and this one was renowned. He imagined the two of them wandering among those ancient stones, feeling history and mystery converge. It would be a moment neither of them would forget. He glanced at the clock, his heart fluttering with anticipation. Maybe he was getting ahead of himself. Just one evening and already thinking about soul companion and precious connection. But as he'd learned from the years of tending his flock and reading metaphysical tomes, intuition mattered. The heart often knew truths long before the mind could catch up. Tom, Tom took a sip of his tea and stepped into the corridor. He was eager to meet her, to share his new day, and to watch her eyes light up when he revealed his plan. Yes, Stonehenge, the perfect place to celebrate this new spark between them. Today would be a day both of them would cherish. He just knew it. And that knowing warmed him more than any beam of sunrise light ever could. Lesoul made her way downstairs to meet Tom for what she thought was a day of sightseeing in London. When Lesoul stepped into the lobby, she found it awash with morning light. The polished floors and elegant arrangements of flowers felt like part of a gentle ceremony celebrating another day's possibilities. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw Tom waiting near the entrance, looking a bit like a schoolboy anticipating a new grand adventure. Hands loosely clapped in front of him, bright eyes, and an eager but calm smile warming his face with a quiet confidence, still carrying the glow of the previous night's resonance with her. "Good morning," she greeted him softly, smiling as if they were long acquainted friends rather than two travelers whose paths had only recently crossed. Tom's grin broadened. "Good morning, Lesoul. Did you sleep well?" "I did," she replied, tilting her head slightly, her voice relaxed and affectionate. "It's a beautiful day to explore." "That it is," Tom agreed, holding the door open for her as they stepped onto the London's lively streets. Pedestrians hurried by, shopkeepers rolled up their shutters, and a bus rumbled past, its passengers peering out over the awakening city. Everything felt vibrant, as if the city itself were nudging them forward on their shared journey. As they began walking, Tom kept the day's true destination tucked close to his heart, like a precious secret gift waiting for the perfect moment to be revealed. He would wait until they reached the station. Until then, he wanted to simply enjoy her company, the easy flow of conversation, the quiet smiles that passed between them, the sense of having found someone who perceived life's deeper layers as clearly as he did. Lesoul, for her part, was happy to let him lead for now. She could sense something special in the air, something beyond the usual tourist fare. As they strolled toward their destination, their unknown rendezvous with destiny, she marveled at the feeling that the universe was once again orchestrating events in perfect harmony. A grand adventure was indeed unfolding, and her heart sang in quiet anticipation. As Tom guided Lesoul to their transportation, he placed his hand gently on the small of her back in a gesture both gentlemanly and respectful. This unexpectedly made Lesoul's heart skip a beat. She could feel a deep emotional response as if they had done this many times, and it felt like home. The gentle pressure of Tom's hand at the small of her back felt natural and kind, a simple, unspoken reassurance that he was there with her, guiding her forward into the unknown. Yet Lesoul, yet to Lesoul, it also held a deeper resonance. It sent warmth through her heart, one that made her feel as though they'd taken this walk countless times before, as if their souls recognized a familiar dance. It was strangely comforting, like returning to a place that had always felt like home. She glanced at him, surprised to find his eyes resting on hers with a quiet understanding, as though he too sensed that their connection ran deeper than ordinary chance. Though they spoke no words in that moment, something passed between them, an acknowledgement of shared recognition. Two wanderers who, by some cosmic design, had found their paths converging at precisely this time and place. As they reached their mode of transportation, a private car waiting on a quiet side street, Lesoul's curiosity bubbled up again. She had assumed they would simply stroll through London, yet Tom's arrangements suggested something more. The driver greeted them warmly, tipping his hat, and Tom opened the door for her, ushering her inside with that same gentle care. He settled beside her, and as the vehicle pulled away from the curb, Lesoul felt a subtle hum of anticipation fill the air. Wherever they were headed, she knew it would be a journey unlike any she'd expected, and all the while the soft warmth at her back and the emotion still blooming in her chest reminded her that this adventure and this connection were meant to be cherished. Tom and Lesoul talked effortlessly about many things. At one point, Tom asked her, did she ever consider visiting sacred sites around the world? Lesoul said, oh, yes, I am absolutely going to visit the Great Pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, the Temple of Isis. And she chuckled, I guess I've exposed my weakness, with a little laugh. And Tom's eyes lit up, amused and intrigued at the same time. A weakness, he gently teased. I'd say that sounds more like a calling. He leaned back slightly, letting the warmth of their shared enthusiasm fill the space. Those sites you mentioned, each one is layered with history, mystery, and powerful energies. I think of them as ancient libraries holding the wisdom we've barely begun to understand. He paused, smiling as he looked at her. It's not surprising that you'd be drawn to them. From the moment we met, I could sense you had a connection to those more subtle dimensions. You probably felt as if these places were calling you home, don't you? Lesoul nodded thoughtfully. They do feel like beckoning beacons in my mind. I can't explain it, but I've always felt their pull, as though there's something about their energy that resonates at a soul level, and I need to experience it firsthand and stand where ancient feet stood and feel the vibration in the land. Tom reached over and gently squeezed her hand, a gesture of understanding and encouragement. Well, I've got a surprise for you today. That's a start in that direction. Let's just say you won't have to wait too long to experience a sacred site firsthand. He winked, delighted at the anticipation flickering in her eyes, and she couldn't help but smile widely, a bundle of curiosity and excitement blooming inside of her. Oh, I'm thrilled, Tom. I'm amazed that you arranged this so quickly. Thank you so much for this day. I have a sense that we are both supposed to visit these sites and that we will be receiving downloads. Tom's face lit up with gratitude at her enthusiasm, a gentle warmth filling the car's interior. He held her gaze for a moment, appreciating the trust and excitement she radiated. Honestly, I'm a bit amazed myself at how effortlessly it all came together. He confessed with a grin. I guess when something feels right, the universe just lines up the details. He looked out the window, the scenery shifting as they traveled further from the city's bustle. And you're right, I have the same sense. It's like we're following a breadcrumb trail laid out long before we ever cross paths. These places, these energies, they're part of something bigger, not just for sightseeing, but for inner seeing. Turning back to her, he continued softly, I can't put it into words, but I feel we'll receive some kind of guidance, clarity, maybe even a healing resonance from the stones and the land. Every time I visited a sacred place, I've come away with insights that feel less like learning and more like remembering. He gave her hand a small, reassuring squeeze. So let's embrace this adventure, Lesoul. Let's step into these ancient energies with open hearts and trust that whatever downloads were meant to be received by us will come through in the perfect way and time. Lesoul felt the truth of what Tom was saying about opening to experience everything. And this sacred site has for them today together. When Tom told her they were on their way to Stonehenge, she was thrilled and immediately began receiving downloads of information to be used at Stonehenge to fully activate it for their initiation. As the car glided through the countryside, Lesoul relaxed into the flow of energies around her. She could sense the gentle hum of the landscape's resonance changing, becoming subtler, quieter, and more refined. The further they traveled from the city, it was as if the veil of everyday life were thinning, allowing her a clear perception of the currents of ancient wisdom that wove through the earth. When Tom shared that their destination was Stonehenge, Lesoul's whole being lit up. She had always longed to visit that sacred site, feeling it calling to her with a silent, steady whisper over the years. Now, sitting beside Tom, she realized this wasn't just her experience, it was theirs to share. The knowledge that they were about to stand on that hallowed ground together made the moment feel divinely orchestrated. Almost immediately, images and impressions began to flicker through her inner vision, patterns of light intersecting the stone, threads of energy linking them to star fields and ancient star maps. She saw herself and Tom standing at the center, in the center with their hearts open, receiving streams of subtle energies like shimmering rays. She felt the presence of beings, guardians of this sacred portal, welcoming them. There was no fear, only warmth and curiosity. She sensed that this was not merely a historical site, but a living, conscious gateway. As they approached, her heart began to vibrate with anticipation. There were instructions arriving in her mind, rituals of breath and intention, words of gratitude to whisper to the stones, postures and visualizations that would help her and Tom align fully with the energies present. She understood that these downloads were part of the experience itself, gifts from the guardians of Stonehenge, meant to help them anchor new frequencies into their fields. Turning to Tom, her eyes shone with excitement and reverence. It's already starting, she whispered, her voice gentle but resonant with awe. I can feel the energy reaching out to us, preparing us. I'm receiving guidance about how we can work with the stones, how to open ourselves even more. I think we're meant to activate something together to allow a deeper initiation to unfold. Tom reached for her hand, and his touch felt steady and reassuring. As the car continued on, the countryside slipping by in soft greens and golds, they both knew that this day was no accident, and that the stones ahead were more than ancient monuments. They were teachers, allies, and portals to a truth that existed outside of time. All that was left was to arrive, to listen, and to open their hearts together. As they pulled into the parking lot for Stonehenge, they felt the powerful energies flowing in. The moment that they stepped out of the car and felt the earth beneath their feet, a subtle shift stirred in the air around them. It was as though invisible currents of energy were flowing from the distant circle of stones, weaving their way through the fields, reaching out to greet these two visitors who had come with open hearts and clear intentions. Standing side by side on the walkway, Lesoul and Tom watched as a small shuttle approached. Other visitors were waiting, chatting softly or snapping photos of the surrounding countryside. Yet for Lesoul and Tom, the world seemed slightly hushed, as if nature itself had slowed its breath to honor this moment. The sun, now high and bright, lit the landscape in gentle golds and greens, its warmth encouraging them forward. Every step they took seemed to draw them deeper into a field of resonance. Lesoul noticed a subtle buzzing along her spine, not unpleasant, but electric and alive. Tom felt a calm steadiness settle into his heart, as if the land itself were acknowledging and supporting him. They boarded the shuttle, finding seats near the window, and as the vehicle began to move, the anticipation built. Other travelers appeared excited too, but for different reasons. Perhaps the historical significance of Stonehenge or the mystery of its construction. For Tom and Lesoul, it was more than history or curiosity. They were here for initiation, for an exchange of energy as ancient as the stones themselves. They exchanged a glance, and in that silent communication was the knowledge that this was a threshold moment. Once they set foot by those towering stones, they would be stepping on into a sacred space, an energetic node on earth that held keys to memory, awakening and expanding consciousness. The shuttle glided along and ahead. They could see the silhouettes of Stonehenge's mighty pillars rising over the rolling fields. Each breath brought them closer, and each heartbeat carried a silent prayer. Let us be open, let us receive, let us remember. In that quiet unity, they prepared to meet the stones. They were ready. This is the end of episode 4 of Lesoul's adventure in StoryTime. And I hope you like and subscribe and look forward to episode 5 coming soon. Thank you all for listening, and hopefully you're already asleep. Nighty night.